The artwork for Anime Podcasters is provided by GoProKyo. Please go follow him at GoProKyo. Hi guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Anime Podcasters. I am here with an amazing guest, GoProKyo. How's it going, buddy?
Hi guys, I'm back. Jaian can't seem to get rid of me, no matter how hard he tries.
Guess who's back? Back here again.
Yeah.
Rick is back. Tell Morty.
Yeah. Yeah, Morty knows. He's very aware.
Yes. Okay. Today, I'm very excited for the topic. This is a podcast I've been dying to do. This is a show I've been dying for Kyo to watch. He's watched it. He's completed it. He doesn't like it as much as me, but I live for this anime. This anime is my favorite of all time. It surpassed Yu Yu Hakusho. It surpassed Death Note. Yes, Hotshot, you heard me right. It surpassed Death Note. Today, we're talking about... What are we talking about today, Kyo?
We're talking about Zankyou no Terror, which in English terms would be Terror and Resonance, is a very recent anime. I believe it was what was it, 2016, 2017?
2014. Still very recent.
2014? Yeah. Okay. Released in 2014, and luckily enough for me, it was dubbed, so I got the chance to check it out on the Funimation Now channel, and I was pretty impressed with it. I liked what I saw, and just to give you guys sort of a basics of the story, there's only so much I can say without spoiling the rest of the show, so I'm just going to tell you the basics of it. It focuses on these two young male characters, and they are essentially terrorists. And this anime tends to sort of like try and show us their side of why they're terrorizing, as it were. And that's about as much as I can say without spoiling it. But from this point on, I believe we're just gonna like dig really deep into it and just like get really into it and like just kind of dissect it as much as humanly possible. Yes,
this is what we're doing on the podcast. Yes, we're gonna talk about it, all of it, like from top to bottom. Like, spoiler alert right now. Like, get out of here if you don't want to get spoiled. Leave.
So yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, check it out on either Funimation, Crunchyroll, whatever you use. It should be available on Crunchyroll. It is. Yes, it is. Actually, it definitely is.
It is. I watched it there.
Yeah.
All right. So, yes, Terror Resonance. This is a great anime. I loved it so much. I am so excited right now. I don't even know where to start. Let's start with the beginning. I think this is a good jumping point. Essentially, the very first scene we have here is 12 in a sort of, I guess, snow truck, and he's flipping around this grenade. I'm not going to describe it scene by scene. And they're in this place in Algeria, if I'm not mistaken, and they capture this big plutonium bomb. That's like very dangerous, and the way they go about it was very ingenious. And we see them, we see Nine graffiti the word Vaughn, which we're gonna talk about later on in the show, when they're capturing it in this plant. And then so this first entire scene where we see them working in action to capture this bomb, and like we had the one soldier like shooting at them, and then the other guy's like, "Why are you shooting? Like, that's a fucking bomb. Like, we will die if that thing blows up. Don't do that." And we see the bomb in the final episode. A good thing it is shoot that bomb, because the anime would have been done very quickly. What were your first thoughts in that first scene, Kyo, and everything?
So I'm just gonna say this flat out. First time I tried watching it, I didn't quite get into it the first time, like mostly because like I only saw the first episode and I just wasn't all that interested in it the first time around, but right. I knew I would have to like give my thoughts on it for the podcast. So, excuse me. I went ahead and pushed through, and I'm not saying it was bad. It's far from bad, actually. I just wasn't interested on my initial viewing, but then I gave it a chance about, I don't know, I want to say like almost a year later, and I enjoyed it a lot. The first scene was just like, I was just like, I really don't like how it's just starting with like us kind of in the dark, And like I'm totally okay with those kinds of openings and like literally anything, but like for some reason, uh, it just felt kind of too real to me. So like I was just like, what's the purpose of doing this as an anime if you could probably do this in live action, if not for like maybe cheaper, honestly.
I mean, I understand what you're saying and everything. What I loved about this anime and what got me hooked is the the mystery side of it, where 9 and 12 at the beginning, we don't understand what's happening exactly with them. 9 has these flashbacks, and like very, very quickly we see that like he's been traumatized as a kid. And later on, we figure out they were part of the Athena plan. And the Athena plan to me was absolutely like, I can't believe that, like, I just, to me, like, the fact that those 2 kids survived, and also 5 survived it, obviously, and they have a mission, they have something they want people to know about, and they go about, like, people finding out about their truth in a very intense way, which is, like, blowing up these different buildings and everything. What did you think about this whole like setup where you have these 2 kids? They think they're the only 2 survivors, right? And they go ahead, they capture this bomb, and now they're gonna start blowing out these different buildings. They're gonna upload YouTube videos. Like the whole terrorism of it all, like the whole setup here. Was it something that worked for you, or was it something that was kind of odd to you?
So upon like actually getting past the first 3 episodes, I was actually pretty hooked. It's amazing how like the first episode can just like not do it for you, but then like just give it time and then actually just sit down and watch it through like one sitting. I watched it in 2 days because like I had other things going on, but I got so wrapped up in the mystery. I was just like trying to think like what actually happened. Like I was so invested in like the past of these kids, like just thinking like, what have they been through? What is their goal? Like, why are they doing these things for these reasons? Or like, I was just like, what's their whole reason for this? And which makes me think like this is actually a much smarter show than I originally gave it credit for. I had no doubts that it must have been like at least somewhat brilliant because like it actually almost got I believe it got nominated for some of the Crunchyroll Awards back in 2015 or something. I'm not quite sure.
Did it? I didn't know that.
I think it got nominated for music. I'm not quite sure, but I think.
I mean, Yoko Kano does the music. I would not blow.
Yeah, I've been seeing your covers. I really love them.
Oh, I have so many more covers planned too. Like this. Yes, I love this series so much.
But I'm not gonna lie. The like initially, I thought it was too realistic, but as it went on, I was like, you know what? It like the way the backgrounds look and the way that it kind of just has these very muted looking color palettes for these characters that kind of shows like everybody's sort of everybody's kind of desensitized and they're all kind of just like going about their lives, but then the main characters who are also in very muted color schemes, there's the really serious one who I enjoyed a lot, and then there was
I love 9.
The funny one.
12. All
Yeah.
great characters.
They were both really interesting. It was nice to see characters who are complete opposites of each other, but they still have the same goal, and they're very focused and they're very driven to bring their message out. And I really like that. But the thing that I was a little upset with was that they didn't go a little further, I think. I mean, like, what I was initially expecting when you said it was about these characters who are terrorists, I was expecting maybe we would get sort of something a little more taboo and maybe kind of, like, dives into kind of, like, making us sympathetic for people who are terrorists. Like, at least, I'm not saying you should be towards a terrorist person. Not necessarily, but the idea would have been interesting to me if we saw through their perspective. Like maybe we could kind of have an allegory for like Al-Qaeda, Taliban, or stuff like that. Like I'm not trying to sympathize with it. I'm just saying like it would have been an interesting perspective to see why these people do what they do. But I guess that's just like me nitpicking it, honestly.
I don't think it would have been as enjoyable if they went that route, honestly.
I'm sure it wouldn't have. I mean, I really enjoyed how how nice it looked. The backgrounds are probably the best part. Not a knock towards the animation, but I really like how the backgrounds stand out and kind of make you focus on these characters who have like very they don't have very bright colors like other anime characters. They look very simplistic. They look very much like they are Japanese, and their skin is kind of really light and pale.
Yeah.
Their hair is dark like an actual Japanese person. Thank you.
There's like the animation. Like I'm more of a music guy, but the animation is in this series. The scenery was absolutely amazing. One of my favorite scenes is at the end of episode 4, when Lisa and 12 are on the motorcycle driving away from the police and everything. Because basically 12 at that point, like after that first episode, Lisa obviously survives and she chooses basically to join their side, and then 12 it's like, well, we can't have her just running around, like I'm gonna put a track on her, so he knows where she is at all times. And then like he's following her around and he sees like cops are gonna like get to her, so he's like, no, get on the bike, let's get out of here. And then what I loved about that scene after that is like is Lisa asking 12 like, are you gonna destroy it, are you gonna blow the entire world up? And 12 starts laughing. He's like, "What are you talking about? That's not what we do. That's not who we are." And Lisa just like all that from that moment on, like all the pressure she had, all that, like think about it, like she knows who blew up that building. Like think about like the secret she's holding within herself is like crushing her, and she's a very fragile character. Like I feel from that moment on, she like her level of stress like diminishes intensely, and she's like, okay, I feel at home with these people, which is still crazy because they're terrorists. And then we go into that whole scene with we go into the whole airport arc and everything. I want to talk a little bit about the airport arc, maybe. What did you think of that whole chess match with 5, 9, and 12, and Lisa in the airplane and everything? Like, what did you think of that whole setup? Obviously, Shibasaki is there with the police task force and everything.
Oh.
What did you think of that?
With this show, I usually when I watch like a long-term show and I see like these really quote-unquote suspenseful scenes where it's like, oh, they might not make it out, but like with this show, it was only 11 episodes. So I was thinking, yeah, so like the suspense is driven a little bit more home. And that's something that I really dislike, is when you know that there's more episodes after that. So like, because I think like streaming has kind of ruined suspense a little bit, especially with TV shows.
Right.
But with this show, it's only 11 episodes. So you kind of leave it open to the fact, like, maybe if 9 and 12 die, maybe she goes on and like brings out their message, like she figures out what their actual message is, and then she like gets it out to the people, like just like that would have been just as interesting. And like technically that kind of happens, but anyway, one thing at a time.
One thing at a time. Yes.
Yeah, the whole thing was so suspenseful. I really love how it's kind of like it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game with the whole portion with the airport. Like, so like learning that there's this other character who is just as smart as our main characters, is behind the scenes and playing with surveillance cameras and like kind of guiding them in a way that she like kind of like a chessboard, and it's really, really nicely done. Like, I love how the whole airport is kind of like their chessboard, and I can't remember who or what condition this is, but there are people who have this ability to actually do chess without seeing the board, and they use their brain to sort of to like play without a chessboard. So like they could just imagine it from when it is they can imagine it from when everything's set up, and then like how the entire chessboard looks based on just reading somebody's or remembering what somebody said at this point, this point, and this point.
Yeah. 9 was amazing at that.
Yeah, and it's exactly like that, and I love it because most of the stuff in the show is very realistic. Like, I really like how close it is to real life, but at the same time, my head is just like, if they could have just done it in live action, but if they did in live action, we'd miss out on like so much of this like really nice animation, these really great background works, and this music. I mean, but all in all, I really enjoyed the whole thing with the airport. Like, there's so much tension and suspense. Like, you don't know for sure if the girl is gonna make it out of this. I forget the girl's name, but
Lisa.
Lisa. Okay, that's like one of the most normal names in a Japanese show.
I know, but I want to go back to what you said about Nine being able to visualize things like a chessboard and everything. Another moment of his very similar to that really, really impressed me was when he. When he was in the very first episode, and then like he asked Lisa, like, do you want to be an accomplice or do you want to like die where you stand? And she's like, I want to be an accomplice. And he's like, okay, what floor are you on? She's like, 14th. He's like, okay, go there, go here, go down here, go there. Okay, put the Kuruden right in front of you. Step back in the shadows. Do it now. Boom. Yeah. Tells right there. Like, he has this ability to like visualize these like these plays like amazingly, and I love that about him.
Yeah.
I just like love that about him. And his hacking skills too. Like, we saw him just like with the whole subway system where he's like trying to go by back door, and then he sees like Five like had him the whole time. He's like, crap, I gotta go by foot, and then he runs all the way to the subway station. I think this is an interesting point maybe to go to. These terrorist attacks, like, barely anyone gets hurt by them.
Yeah.
That's really, really something that's crazy to pull off when you think about it. Like, I guess you could make the argument with the Roppongi Station one, the second bombing, where he delivers them noodles and then it's the bomb. Like, that's like, oh my god. Like, what you think of that? Like, that the whole setup where they don't hurt anyone intentionally. You see what I mean? Like, when not a lot of people, like, these bombings could kill hundreds and thousands of people, but they would never really do. What do you think about that?
What specifically? Just like how most of their just how like most of their attacks are not focused on hurting anybody, just mostly bringing something down, just showing that they can do it.
Well, more like in the sense that their explosions could take out hundreds of people, like I said, and for some reason they make it and they align it and they strategize it in a way where it never happens, and that takes like incredible planning. What do you think of like that setup that this terrorist group isn't like in any other terrorist group where they just want to blow stuff up just for the hell of it? They have meaning and purpose between each and every one of their attacks. What do you think of that strategical approach to the terrorism?
Well, honestly, to be completely honest, this is supposed to be the case with most, with like other terrorist groups. Terrorist groups are all joined behind a common goal. Though it is an extreme goal, it's a goal nonetheless. So the concept is pretty much the same, except the difference is their message is like they're avoiding killing people specifically because they just want to kind of get people's attention. And from like how the show ends and like the whole reason that all of it was happening was just because these kids were in horrible condition when they were young, and they were just or like when you kind of see piece by piece how these characters are growing up, and you get to see the horrible things they went through, and like you grow sympathy for them. And weirdly enough, at the end of the show, you're like, I followed a terrorist or characters that were terrorists for 11 episodes, but their reasons are completely justifiable.
They are justifiable. That's the insanity of it to me. Maybe I want to talk about favorite characters to begin with. For the longest time, 12 Months my favorite character. I love his attitude. I love his like super like lightheartedness about stuff. But like he's still like he's like, Lisa, if you like screw me, I will kill you. I guess what I disliked about him was the way how he turned his back on 9 and told 5 where the bomb was in the locker at the school when he was saving Lisa. Yeah, that made me like he has a weakness, and his weakness is Lisa, and we could see that very heavily. That's something about him that I didn't like. I really enjoyed Nine's cool, calm, collected side, and obviously at the very end of the show, we see that all fall to the ground and break into pieces. And I love the rise and the fall of that character arc. These characters these two boys are just like my favorite anime characters ever. For sure. Any other thoughts on those characters, or any standout characters for you in the series?
Honestly, I just like the only thing that I didn't like was probably Lisa, or like at the very least, I really wanted more character out of her because like she most of the show she's kind of just whimpering and feeling like garbage, and I'm just like, why are we watching this if there's nothing all that interesting about her? We get to know what her home life is like, but we don't really get to know her as a character. Because as far as we know, she, uh, I mean, like, because as far as we know, she just doesn't know how to cook.
Oh,
And
I
so,
remember that. He's like, "This is inedible." He's like, "Do you try it?" She's like, "She's also really bad at soccer." Remember when they were kicking around
yeah,
the soccer ball the last episode, and she's like, just like
yeah.
has the worst time ever. But yeah,
I mean, like, I really wanted more of a character out of her because she's very plain, I want to say, because there's, like, what can you honestly tell me about her aside from her home life and that she sucks at soccer and cooking?
she has the same eyes as the people, as the orphans in from the Athena planet, and that's how 12 described her. She also is, how can I say this?
Yeah, but I mean, what about her? Like, what about her personality do you remember?
What about her personality? I remember her being extremely shy and her being very like it was hard for her to adapt and like understand how to like live with 9 and 12 at the very beginning. Like the first time she wakes up and she like touches all those cell phones and then they're all about to explode and then like 9's like, good thing the trigger wasn't on because we would all be dead right now, and like 12's like, boom. Like I love those little comments by 12 here and there. I just a little quick side note. Another one I loved was when the first episode, the power outage, and then all the kids are like, "Oh, where's my mom?" And he's just like walking around, like, "Mommy, mommy." I love that.
Yeah.
But going back to Lisa specifically here, another thing about her personality, I think, is that she develops courage. With 9 and 12, the whole thing in the airport where she decides to like take the bomb and go to the bathroom to make a distraction. Obviously, she gets caught and everything and gets thrown. It ends up failing, but she does grow a pair of tatas, if you understand what I'm saying here, and she decides to like join the team and actually like help them out. And I think she, at the end of it, she earns her place because she helped 9 and 12 accomplish their mission.
I see where you're going with that, but I kind of disagree with it because there's it's kind of hard to explain because like I understand what you mean by saying that she grows, but the growth is not really, it's not as apparent as I think you make it out to be, or at least from my perspective. I just see that she kind of hasn't really changed. I mean, she did kind of woman up, as it were, when like during the whole airport thing, but even when she does do that, she still gets caught, and that just makes her a liability. And I understand that she's an accomplice now, so it's either go ahead with those guys or die. But I honestly would have liked to get a little more into her head, like just see, like just kind of get to know her character a little bit more. Like maybe she has,
But that is her
know.
character. That is her
Yeah.
character. That her character is lame Lisa. She gets bullied in that first episode, and they're like in the pool and everything, and Tova is like, "Oh, this is what you call bullying, right?" And like that's her character. She later on in that episode, she's in the washroom and she dumps out her lunch, and her mom's overprotective. Like that's what you can expect from her. It's not gonna go any further, and that's who she is. It goes a bit further. Yeah, she grows here and there, but that's Lisa. I understand maybe wanting more out of her, but at the same time, I feel like we have such intense characters with 9 and 12, and they're fearless in everything they do, that having a counterpart that's the complete opposite in terms of like courage and going out there and getting it done is a good balance.
I
That's
see what
my
you're
point.
saying, and I kind of understand a little bit more. She's kind of supposed to be the observer or the straight man, but I still feel like she could have been a little more interesting. Like at the very least, I would have liked to know. Like I would have liked to see her grow a little bit more. And I understand that it's kind of realistic for her to have not grown all that much. Because like after a point she just kind of leaves the guys, and then the guys go off and accomplish their mission. And then like at the very end she helps accomplish the mission. And I like that. But I don't know. I think it just kind of rubs me the wrong way when you have a female character who is useless for the most part. I do admit that she had points where she was helpful, but they were kind of few and far between for me. That's pretty much just how I feel about it.
I mean, if you are talking about a female character that was useful, I think 5, when she starts being introduced, she really plays a big, how can I say, what's the word I'm looking for here? She's like a good enemy. She's a good person to like root against. That like
she's a really good adversary.
Adversary's the word.
Yeah, she's basically the same, or it's basically kind of the same thing as like Moriarty and Sherlock. They're equals in the in almost every meaning of the word. And I really like how at the end that she kind of like I was honestly confused with like how at the end she offs herself and like how she's trying to help everybody. I mean, I guess or trying to help 9 and 12. I guess it was just because like maybe her being killed would like also help get their message out. But I really liked her character. That was it was really interesting to see her play cat and mouse with the 9 and 12, and it's kind of hard to explain, but it was just really intriguing to watch them kind of play back and forth off of each other, you know?
Right. But like, I feel like the reason why she was an adversary and then she turns out to at the end not be an adversary, not offing herself, is because when 9 and 12, when they were just kids in the Athena plan, and they triggered that fire alarm system and they managed to get away. 5 was supposed to get away with them, but 5 doesn't end up, like, she ends up not being able to get away. And the reason why 9 has all those dreams and all those like flashbacks of like horrible things that happen is because he left 5 behind. And so she's like, you left me behind, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, I'm stuck here, so you're my enemy, you don't care about me. And then at the very end she remembers, like, I am one of you. I am like 9, I am like 12. I am one of you, so why am I fighting against you guys? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So and so she's like, let me join your side in the sense that like, let me help you. And I mean, offing herself was, I think it was the whole dramatic scene and everything. It was a good scene. It was a great way. And when she dies, I was like, don't do that. And then the episode after that episode broke my heart. Like
Yeah.
Okay, so 5. Let's talk about Shibasaki. Let's talk about the police force. Shibasaki was obviously a bit like the L of the series in a sense. He was the one who was able to solve the riddles, see through what's happening. He was the one piecing everything together. Obviously not as smart as L, but he was who 9 and 12 were targeting, and they were like, he's the one who's going to get the riddles. He's the one who's going to figure it out. And they do end up figuring out a couple of the riddles. And like, I remember that one riddle where it was like, you have to solve it instead of like finding the bombs. And then they end up, instead of an explosion, they leaked all of the data from the police investigation on Twitter and Facebook and everything. That was a great scene. So talk to me about Shibasaki a little bit. What are your thoughts on him?
Honestly, he was one of my favorite characters. Like, I really liked how this character is, like, he's kind of thinking the same, like, in the same sense as a serial killer would. Like, there's a lot of characters that are like that. Al is a good example. Sherlock is a pretty close example because, like, he's, like, in the case of Sherlock, he knows how the criminal mind works, like, just how the human mind works, and just the way that it may be twisted, but it makes sense. Like, there's everything kind of just makes sense to him in a way. But but with the detective in this show, it's a little more based around the fact that he has had this, or he's been doing this for a long time, and just the way he thinks is very what's the word? Avant-garde, I guess.
Why is it avant-garde? I'm interested to know that.
I guess it's avant-garde in the sense that it's basically, like, he's basically deciphering everything almost instantly. Like, he completely, like, sees into their heads just a little bit. Like, he at least gets what they're talking about. Like, whenever they have a puzzle for him to like solve, he seems to almost get it like almost instantly, and it's really fascinating to see a police officer in this sense, like completely understand the criminal mind in a like on a really deep level. And in the case of these, in the case of 12 and 9, they're not necessarily criminals, but they are doing stuff that's illegal. But the thing that's really driving the detective is figuring out why. Why are they doing these things, and what is their ultimate goal? And I really find it fascinating to see him kind of almost driven mad, just trying to figure out exactly why these kids are doing what they're doing. And the way that it ends, it's just so powerful. Like, I really love the way that when he comes face to face with them, he's just like, oh my god, they're just kids. They just want to have a normal life, basically.
Right, but like, and what I loved also about that moment when he's face to face with them for that final scene was like, he's like, I will make sure everything comes out in court, and I promise you, I will do everything to make sure that your death is not in vain. You know, that you are successful and everything. And the scene we see after is that, like, yes, the government collapses basically because everything comes out. Like, we finally find out why Spinks did what they did, and it was really nice to see that, like, he still cared enough about them that he visits the grave. You know, I don't know on how regular of a basis and everything. But another thing I actually found really interesting about Shibasaki, I remember there was one episode where he was talking to that other detective. I forget the name, with the guy with the short blonde hair, and he was telling him how he grew up in Hiroshima, right? Yeah. And he was a second generation atomic bomb victim, basically, because he lived in Hiroshima. So that was part of his background. So I think a reason why he accepted the case to, like, figure out Spinks and why he had an interest in everything was because it was bombs and it was like terrorist attacks. So like, just from the beginning, he was in a little bit cut from the same cloth where, like, he experienced terrorism and he was familiar with that. Terrorism psychology was something he was very familiar with. So I enjoyed that about the whole setup here, because he really could relate to the characters, and I loved, like, every sorry, what's the word? I know the word in French, but in English it's not coming to me. Not quiz, every riddle that Spinks presented, he was like, oh, I think this is it, and he was right. Well, I think this is it, and you were right again. And so he really is able to keep up with their mentality. And basically, I remember at the end of one episode, 9 was like, come on out, like, I want to see when you figure out, like, come on out, like, come in and join me here. I'm challenging you directly with all of these attacks, you know. And like Shibasaki, there was that other scene where he was on the live stream and he was like, oh, we figured out your riddle, da 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 da, like, dude, don't F with me. It was basically the sentiment he was giving out there. Just really, really great character. I really enjoy Shibasaki as a character. I want to ask you about this, Kyo. What were your thoughts on the one episode where instead of an explosion, it was a leak of the police investigation information? Well, because I was expecting an explosion when that happened. I was sure where everything was gonna go boom again. Like, they're terrorists. But this time it wasn't a terrorist attack. It was a leak of everything they figured out. Like, get me through your thoughts when that scene happened.
It made sense to me in the sense that, like, it kind of creates sort of a rift between the trust of the people and the trust of the law enforcers. And that's kind of a very, what's the word? It's a very thin line to, or like, it's a very thin kind of tightrope walk, as it were. Because, like, any kind of information that the police are withholding from the people seems dishonest to some people, like, from that perspective. And in the mind of 9 and 12, they know that will kind of cause a rift with the police and the people, and they'll I don't know, it feels kind of like a natural move. I've seen it happen before in shows, but I don't know, it seemed a little normal to me, because, like, I've seen other shows that have done the same thing, and it just kind of makes sense, you know?
Right, but were you expecting it? Or were you expecting like an explosion?
Oh, I was kind of expecting an explosion, but, like, at the same time, they never revealed that they were setting up anything like from like as we're watching their perspective. But I don't know. I was honestly expecting it. I guess I honestly was expecting an explosion and was kind of surprised just a little bit by the leak, but I don't know. It just made sense to me.
Okay, very interesting. Let's go to this. Let's talk about Vaughn. The very first time it's spray painted in that reprocessing facility, and we're just like, what's Vaughn? Like, what's this about? And we figure out it's an Icelandic word and it means hope. And basically, this is like when Nine was listening to music, it was music from a cold land, obviously Iceland. And there's the track Vaughn, which is part of the anime, which is my favorite anime soundtrack ever. And we at the very end, obviously, also with Lisa telling Shibasaki, music from a cold land. It's Vaughn. It's an Icelandic word. It means hope, and it all comes together. Shibazaki's like, I understand this. Hope was that like literally put a tear to my eye at the very end of the series when I saw that. What were your thoughts on just like this whole Icelandic influence that with the show with Vaughn? Even with the text like Vaughn Voyage, like all this stuff. Like obviously, there's this theme comes back very often in the series. So Nine. Yeah, he held on to that the entire series, and it's like it's in the imagery a lot. It's obviously throughout the series we see it. It's very present. What were your thoughts on its influence on the show? Just your thoughts in general. Just go ahead.
I really like the inclusion of it. Like when you're seeing it, you're thinking, oh, that's the calling card, or like that's the way to know like they've hit this place and like this is their mark, they know, or like they've infiltrated this area and they've left that mark to indicate like, hey, this is us making a statement. And it still remains a statement at the end of the show, but instead of just being a simple calling card, it is literally them saying we have hope that our message will come out and that people will be on our side once they understand why we've been doing all this and why we want all that attention.
Very, very interesting. For me, like when that song was playing in the Ferris wheel scene, I feel like the song represented a little bit of the confusion for 12, where his love for Lisa, because I think he had feelings for Lisa, pretty clearly, but his loyalty to Nine. You see what I mean? And he was in a conflict right there, right then and there. And that song like carries a lot of emotion, and that message carries a lot of emotion. So it's something that like they held on to, but I also feel like it's something that confused them. You know what I mean? It's something that like 12, maybe like when you saw that Ferris wheel scene and everything, and you saw 12 debating and trying to help out Lisa, and the timer is going, and 5 is like, you're not going to be able to do this, where's the bomb, this pressure and everything. How did you feel maybe the message of hope influenced that particular scene, or what were your thoughts on that scene when you saw like 12 trying to figure out what to do and like ultimately choosing Lisa over 9?
It really does show, or like the whole scene really does kind of give us like, this is how 12 is feeling. Like you can tell by the way that the voice actor is presenting himself and the way that the music is going, that he's very torn on revealing the actual answer because he doesn't want to betray his best friend, like literally, basically his own brother in a way. But he also is doing his best to, one, make sure that nobody dies because of their message, because the message that they're trying to send is not about death. It's about getting the message out that they have been, or like that people have been lied to about these children that went missing and everything. And two, because he doesn't want this person that he's grown attached to die. So I really find that the symbol of hope with the phrase Vaughn, like the light at the end of the tunnel, is very hard to see. Like you can hear the song and it's very faint, but I like how the entire scene is at night and it's very dark and bleak, and it kind of helps establish the mood of like, it looks hopeless, but the sun is rising, basically.
the sun is rising and everything, and I feel like they came from the darkest place. Like, just a reminder, like the Athena plan, this plan basically took 26 children and experimented on them that they were gifted, and only a very few succeeded. And these children were going to be used for like government, like to complete government tasks, and basically they were going to be like doing the dirty work for the government. And like like 9 and 12 were like, yo, like we're out of here and you are gonna pay for what you have done. And obviously they succeed, but they fail at the same time because obviously of their death and everything. But I just the entire way it's set up, like their strategy of blowing up specific areas of Tokyo, and then Shibasaki realizing, okay, wait, this subway station, the owner of it is someone who invested in the Athena plan. This building, the person there was also related to the Athena plan, and boom, 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 and it starts making sense as to what their message is. I mean, I feel like this whole like setup that they had was brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And like I understand, like some people are like, oh, white people will do terrorism, it's meaningless, but they brought meaning to terrorism. That's crazy to me. Before we just get to the end, we start wrapping this podcast up, I did want to talk about this specific character. To me, the reason why it was really funny to me, because Lisa is obviously this character that's like very shy and everything, and when we meet her mom, obviously it's very brief, but she's like the most overprotective being I've ever seen in anime. Like, it's like Lisa like goes to school, and like I'd be surprised if like her mom also had a tracker on her instead of just 12. Like, seriously, and she like sends her all those texts and everything, and I feel like that overprotectiveness of her exemplifies why she is the way she is, in the sense that like she just wants to breathe, she just wants to like rebel in a sense, and like 9 and 12 offer her this opportunity to rebel when you're like, choose, do you want to die, or do you want to like, you know, do you want to be a part of the squad?
Squad goals.
Yeah. Squad goals. Would you agree with that? Do you think like Lisa's mom's instability maybe influenced Lisa's choice when Nine offered her to die or to join? Do you feel like it had any influence?
First of all, I just want to say I feel like she could have avoided so much bullshit by just saying, "I'm fine, Mom."
Yeah,
like
but
actually fucking saying something to her mom, because like her mom is so like overly insanely protective. At the very least, the girl could just be like, "I'm fine," just like kind of coax her mom, because her mom's insanity is a little warranted, I will give her that, but beyond the point of becoming really protective of her child, gets a little out of hand really quickly.
No, I completely agree.
But anyway, what was your question? I just wanted to like bring that up before I went into it. But
Lisa's mom's like outburst and her like out of like her freaky like wanting to control Lisa and like, you know, super overprotectiveness, basically sheltering Lisa her entire life. Let's just think about it. Like, she's been sheltered her entire life because of this of her mother that way. Do you think that element that she grew up with influenced her decision when Nine was like, do you either want to die or do you want to join us? And this was an opportunity for her to rebel, basically, because at that point she knew like these are the guys who blew up the building.
Yeah, I mean, the more I think about it, the more you mention it, I start to think like sometimes, or like most of the time, when kids hit like adolescence or puberty, they start to like want to keep certain things from their parents. And in Lisa's case, Lisa is just really shy. Like, no matter where she goes, she's afraid to like kind of speak up, I guess. But in that same sense, we don't necessarily know why. And if the only answer is like she's shy, then I don't really understand what the problem is. But that's kind of just the way that kids work. Like, when they go into high school, some of them start getting bullied, or like go into a crowd that's kind of toxic for them, and they feel like they can't really speak their mind, and they feel very trapped. So that kind of leads kids to be rebellious and just do what they want, like regardless of whether or not if it's right or wrong. So I do agree with you. I think that some of the overprotectiveness of being at home, in contrast to being at high school, where she is completely unprotected and she is without any form of like, she has no shield to fall back on at school. She's completely subjected to the bullying of her so-called friends, and when she comes home, she's pretty much trapped by her mother, who doesn't want her to go anywhere, just because she's so afraid of her daughter leaving, like just like her father did. And
right, I forgot that.
I can't exactly blame Dad if she snapped so quickly just because she left. And I know it happens. I completely understand that it happens, but there's a point where you cross a line and you need to get help.
Yes. Obviously, like a completely accurate assessment there when you bring this up. Actually, I just thought about this too. These two characters I wanted to briefly mention as well because they were a part of the police task force, and I feel like we have to give the police task force credit here because we only mentioned Shibasaki, and they were obviously like the reason why this succeeded. I like the reason why 9 and 12 were able to succeed in a sense is because they had help with them at the very end, and we'll talk about the end after that. Kurahashi, I really enjoyed him. He was he worked at the police station, and he's like the top guy. And at the very first, I think it was the second episode, he like fills in Shibasaki on the information, and he's like, okay, there was a first explosion, and like this is really what's happening. And he's the one who really recruits Shibasaki out there. And he's like, we need you really bad. And he's able to like kind of pull strings here and there to like try to help. But then the American government gets involved, and he's obviously like, okay, I'll take a backseat, and I'll trust the American government. Like, I'll trust you guys to make sure that there's nothing that goes, like, left field. And then there's the explosion in the airport, and then Shibazaki's like, you told us there was nothing to worry about. And obviously he fails here and there. Did you have any thoughts on Kurahashi as a character, or did you think, like, he was just a one-hit wonder?
Meh.
That character didn't do it for you, huh?
Not really. No, like, honestly, he was kind of one of those characters who just kind of didn't really leave an impact. Because, like, the characters that did leave an impact are, honestly, let's see, 9, 12, Lisa, 5, and whatever his name was.
Shibasaki.
Shibasaki, the detective, yeah.
Talking about Shibasaki, I actually really enjoyed his, like, I'm not body shaming, his fat friend in the beginning of the show. He's like, you shouldn't assume that all fat people know, like, what this word is, or, like, he was really funny, and he added, like touches of humor here and there throughout the show. And, like, could you imagine just living in, like, no, sorry, not living, but, like, working that small office doing archives all the time? I don't know. I thought he was a pretty humorous character, too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know people like that.
Right on. What did you think about this? Yes, a lot of people compare this show to Death Note. And what made me agree with that is the second, very early on in Death Note, we have that police meeting with L shows up, and they're like, obviously this killer is da-da-da-da. And we have the same thing where, like, in the second episode, the police is going over the explosion of the terrorism attack, and it's a cat and mouse, and obviously we see this from the perspective of the villains. Very similar to Death Note in my opinion. Obviously shorter than Death Note. Would you agree that this show is similar to Death Note, or do you see a very big difference?
Same concept, in my opinion, but beyond that, it is... beyond that, the concepts are... sorry, I already said concept. Beyond that, I think that it's very different. And the reason I say that is because there's some pretty obvious facts here, and I actually did some research on this after I saw it, because I noticed that there were a lot of points where some of these things were actually, like, kind of feasible, because, like, I looked up the whole thing about, like, that a nuclear bomb could actually, like, not hurt anybody if they had it in the atmosphere, or, like, in a certain level of the Earth's atmosphere.
Really?
Yeah, it's 100% feasible. It is 100% true.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, it would obviously power out. I thought about this. The power outage would, like, knock off all the power in the city, and people who are on life support in hospitals would die.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a really random thought, but I thought about that. But keep going.
It's a good point.
I'm sorry. I don't know. Yeah.
That's a very good point. Not kill anybody my ass now that I think about it. But I looked through some of the other things about it, and based on the whole thing, or like based on the entire premise of the story, it's actually very similar to a hidden project back in the what was it? The 50s, where it was called MK Ultra. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not. Please let me know what
MK Ultra
is.
was a secret project that the American government actually put into effect back in the 50s, in like during the Cold War, and their ultimate goal was to see if they could create mind control, or like see if they could come up with giving people mental powers. And basically the whole time they were just dropping drugs for these people and seeing what the effects of these drugs were, and kind of just hoping to get mind control out of it, which is a silly thought, quite honestly. But the concept
Very
is
silly.
pretty, yeah. It's pretty similar to like how the show starts out. Like, it's very similar to the core idea of like what these kids are going through. They're being subjected to these experiments and tests, and most of the kids are dying, and like most of them actually did die, like thanks to all that testing. But so like there's some dosage of reality for you there, and I can't remember what else it was, but there were quite a few bits in the show. But yeah, like there were quite a few pieces in the show where a lot of it is very much plausible, which only kind of confirmed my thought in my head of just like, why isn't this just in live action? And honestly, if it were an American movie, it'd probably do pretty well, I think.
They do have a musical of it. I looked this up. They have a musical of Zankyou no Ter.
That's fucking weird.
I know, right? But it's actually like it looks pretty cool. Maybe I'm
Dude,
such
there's
a
a
fanboy.
fucking Evil Dead. There's a fucking Evil Dead musical out there, and it's pretty weird.
There's also a Death Note live action. That's pretty weird.
Hey, that brought us Willem Dafoe as Ryuk. That was one of the best freaking Ryuks you'll ever see.
No, true. Okay, let's start segueing through the ending here. Let's talk about this whole ending scene.
Yeah.
And then we will close out the podcast.
Oh, the ending. Oh, the ending was so beautiful.
It was a heartbreaker to be. So let's
perfect though.
Oh yeah, okay. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
I'll just go ahead and describe it. Anyways,
please.
at the end of this film, at the end of this show, they get their message across, they at least get the fact out there that they've pretty much put the entire country, or wait, no, it wasn't the country, it was just Tokyo, right?
Yeah, they've endangered. Yeah, they briefly power outage the Tokyo.
So basically, they just destroyed the power source for everybody and put them in a state of darkness. And that message for them is, we lived our whole lives in darkness, now it's their turn. And they basically did all that just so they could get the attention of the police and have like an entire set of evidence against the people who did all those horrible things to them when they were young children. And it was very powerful at the end to see these characters, like Lisa, 9, and 12, all go out to this countryside area, and they kind of just start playing ball, listening to music, and just being kids. Like, as they wait for the police officer, and then once the officer gets there, he just realizes, wow, these are just children, and they just want to be kids.
And then,
are you okay?
I don't know if I can finish the podcast. No, but go ahead.
I'm not sure if I believe you or not, but
No, I'm fake. No. But seriously, go ahead and you might as well just. You're right there, Kyo. Just pull the trigger on this world.
Well, anyway, at the end, they both the kids are shot and killed by the government, and
Nine's not shot.
with that, huh?
9 isn't shot. He doesn't get shot. 9.
I
The
thought he got
black-haired
shot, but he still died though.
Yeah, he did die. He did die.
What did he die from?
Basically, I guess I could complete it here. What happens is like Shibasaki is like, okay, 9, 12, Lisa, you're under arrest, and then 12 is like, no, she's just a hostage, right? And so Lisa's on the side here, and then the American helicopters show up, and they're talking, and they're like, blah blah blah, like, what should we do about this? And he's like, oh, they already know too many secrets, like we should off them. And then 9 has this converter basically, and he's like, if the U.S. doesn't withdraw their the airplanes right now, I planted these bombs in a nuclear facility, and I will pull the trigger right now unless they like let go, right? And which that confused me because we never saw 9 like plant bombs in another facility. I don't know if that thing was a whole fake out. Like that was never shown to us in that entire series. Like the atomic bomb shows up and blows up everything in the sky, and we didn't see him plant them. So maybe it happened off screen. And then they're like, they ask like, what should we do? He's making a threat. It's like, listen, we're in too deep at this point. We might as well just keep going. So, and that's where 9 gets shot right through the heart and dies on the spot. Yeah. And the music is just like, it really climaxes like at the perfect instant. And we see 9 collapse on the ground and start crying and all these emotions. And the helicopters obviously, withdraw their themselves. They only shoot 12. 12 dies instantly. Yeah. And then Shibazaki's like 9's about to pull the trigger and like really blow up everything because he's like so pissed. Like, think about it, your number one ally is dead. Like I would have been like, screw this. Boom, you're like, you should not have done that. And then they pull the trigger, and Shibazaki's like, no, I'll make sure everything comes out into court. I promise you, just don't do this. Like, remember your mission, remember what you were here for. And that's when he's like, 9 agrees, and he throws the converter over to Shibazaki, and he says, remember us, remember that we lived. And he has that final headache, and it's the fact that he got drugged and experimented on. Those headaches is what caused his death at the end of the show, and that's when he collapses and dies. And that's how they both go out. And something that's actually interesting to me is the fact that we never saw 12 once get a single headache. But 9 had these headaches all the time, and he obviously died from it. So the fact that 12 got shot, like, think about it. If 9 gets shot, like, 12 might have been able to live on. And that's, like, saddens me even more. And I don't know, like, maybe I'm fan theory crafting at this point, but, like, I feel like 12's life expectancy would have been different than 9's. And just, rest in peace, obviously. But, like, that entire ending, like, it is so like emotional. It is just like it is a heartbreaker for sure. And obviously there's a positive side to it at the end with like Lisa explaining that everything came out in court, and obviously it was all the Sphinx's missions was accomplished at the end, but they're still dead. So that's really the ending from my perspective, at least. Go ahead. Like, how did this make you cry? Did it surprise you? Like, just take me through like what you experienced.
For me, I definitely experienced heartbreak because I saw the entire, or like I watched the show in its entirety within the course of like 2 days, and getting to the final scene was probably, if nothing else, I think the show at least deserves like an award for most emotional experience, because just like going through the whole show and then finding that these characters actually die at the end is very sad to see, but at the very least you know for sure that they got their message out there and their ultimate goal went through, and they could not be happier, I guess. But, And despite going out on such a sad and somber note, it's a very beautiful ending, and if nothing else, I would have to put it in my top 5 animated or anime endings, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I know you have high standards for anime, so that caught me very surprised. I mean, I think that it speaks to how good this show is, and I don't know, like to me, it was like I literally had goosebumps. Like when I saw 12 get shot, it destroyed me. I was like, that was my favorite character, and he's done, and he just collapses there, and his lifeless body's right there. It's really hard to take, and I wish there was an alternate ending where they don't die. But obviously, like what would have happened? They would have gone to jail, and is that a better ending? I don't know.
I don't think that's a better ending. I find that the way that it ended is very refreshing because there's far too many endings where everything works out. Sometimes you just kind of need a little dosage of reality for your shows, and in my eyes, it made a lot of sense to kind of have it end that way because it really it has such a contrast to the beginning of the episode or the beginning of the scene where they're just having fun and being kids, and you see what they always wanted. They didn't want to pursue the terrorist life that they were going for, but they had to because they wanted to make sure that their message gets out there and and that it is seen by people, and it's like seen by all the people out there who have been lied to. And ultimately, for me, the fact that they died doing what they knew was right only cements the show as, honestly, I think the show is a classic, if nothing else.
Definitely. I think that's
like
that,
it's ending. It should, like, I feel like this show, if it left no impact on you, then please tell me how, because in my eyes, I think this was absolutely great.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like emotionally, like this got to me, and like not a lot of shows do it for me. Like when I saw Light die, I was just like, oh man, he died. That sucks. But like this, like, oh my god, like just wow. Let's start wrapping it up. I think like you gave your thoughts on the final scene. Do you have any other final thoughts, Kyo, here on anything about the anime, or do you anything? Go ahead.
If you haven't seen it, then I don't know how you got this far, but anyway,
really?
I feel like this is a show that if I ever make like a top 10 list of anime that everybody must see, I would probably put this at number 10. At the very least, for like the way that it's been put together. In my eyes, I think Death Note is a little bit better, but I can't deny that it left an impact and that it was a really smart show. And if you haven't seen it, you need to see it at least once. I probably will not watch it again just because it's such an emotional journey for me, because like I really enjoyed it. And it may seem like I was kind of harping on it, but I only say these criticisms because I want something to be better and like maybe push itself to being almost perfect. And not saying
definitely.
that whatever I say is perfect, but like I find that constructive criticism helps people get better and kind of see where the chips and cracks are, where we can kind of fix things and just kind of aim for something a little better than what we already have, you know?
But honestly, like if you had come up here and I come up here, right, and we both think it's the best show of all times, and we just talk about how amazing it is the entire time, it's not gonna be an interesting podcast. It's not gonna be as good of a podcast where you have all these criticisms. I barely criticized it. The only criticism I said, if I had to remember, was that 12 turned his back on 9, and that maybe didn't enjoy 9 as much. I don't know. I try like I just obviously I'm a fan of the show and everything, but like I've had people say like it's like a slow beginning, like it's a slow burn to like get into. I've also had people say, I heard people say that when 5 gets thrown into the mix, like it's not as good. The show doesn't get as good. So obviously like this show obviously can be improved in many ways. I did want to tell people like if you enjoyed the show, you saw all 11 episodes and you don't know what else to do. I found like I look up the show all the time. There's a bunch of things things about the show that you can check out. I'm just gonna throw out what I know. The entire album, the soundtrack is available on SoundCloud. SoundCloud, there's like this SoundCloud account that has all the OSTs that you can listen to all the time. So really good there. A bunch of people do a bunch of AMVs of this anime. There's the Zankyou no Terror subreddit you can check out. There's also like this passion project I saw called Zankyou no Analyze, if I'm not mistaken, and it's like this book with like all these Zankyou no Terror artworks and stuff, like fan drawings. I don't know if they're still selling it anymore. There's also someone selling Karurin on DeviantArt. Like I've searched like everything. I basically went everywhere except for fan fictions at this point. Like I swear. There's so much about this anime available out there. So make sure
you don't want to read 9. You don't want to read 9x12? I mean, come on.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I do not. No, thank you.
What's 9 times 12?
9 times 12? Oh god. 9 times 12 plus 5. Okay, I'll stop. Alright, so my final thoughts on this series. This is good. I don't foresee an anime taking the #1 spot of this show for me for a very long time. It's gonna take something really, really, really good or completely out of left field for me to enjoy to find something better than this. I love the music in this anime so much. We barely talked about the music. I loved Future Terror. That's a great soundtrack. I loved Vaughn, obviously, and one of my favorite soundtracks is NC-17. That is another amazing soundtrack. Go check out the album. It's so good. I listen to it all the time. It's on my iPod all the time. I listen to it. My two favorite characters, obviously 9 and 12, great characters. I loved 9 because of how his cool, calm attitude, and like obviously how it all breaks at the end is a beautiful thing in its own way. I also love the fact that he was like such an expert hacker. For some reason I didn't see that much in anime, and that was really cool. I enjoyed how 12 was really good with like disarming bombs, and like in the very first scene you see him like twirling this grenade around like it's like a piece of candy or something. Like just that's a freaking grenade in your hand and you're all chill about it. Like that's insane to me. That's crazy. And I do think that your criticism on Lisa not doing much in the show is valid, and I would have to agree with it. I think that it would have been cool to see her maybe come out a bit more of her shell and just provide more for the group, and maybe they would have had a different outcome. Who knows? That would have been cool. I would have to agree. So those are all my final thoughts. And Kyo, so let's start. I'll let you plug everything you would like people to find out about. So go ahead and plug your merch. No, go plug your stuff.
You guys can check me out on my YouTube channel at GoProKyo. Just type in GoProKyo in the search bar. You'll find me there, and you can find all my social media and my other websites. So if you guys are curious about who does the artwork for the for most of the JaianMusic stuff, go ahead and check me out. I'm gonna be starting a Let's Play channel pretty soon with a couple of my buddies, and hopefully we get that off the ground this time. We're actually having a lot of fun working on it, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And from there, I'm just going to give the microphone right back to Jaian.
Yeah, I heard Hotshot told me about how you guys are working on a Let's Play channel. That's awesome, and I cannot wait. Like, let me know when that stuff comes out, because I'm definitely going to watch. That sounds really cool. I also was going to mention another thing about your artwork. Yeah, you said most of my artwork. Like, that's like, yeah, let's be honest, all of my artwork. Like, come on. Do not sell yourself short here. You like all the artwork you see on the channel, guys.
I literally draw the face of JaianMusic more than any man should have to. So dude, if you want to get technical, you could say I am the face of JaianMusic.
I should just like make you my profile pic.
I am now your profile pic. I am JaianMusic now.
Actually, I had 9 as my profile pic for the longest time.
You keep putting it back and forth, man.
I don't know. I love this show so much. I literally make it my profile pic. Like some like I remember.
I like how you got it. I love how you got the gif of him like putting out or like pulling out his earplug, and like I just was like I saw that and I was just like at the very last episode I was just like I haven't seen him do that at all, and then I saw him do it. I'm like, oh, okay, that's where it's from.
Yeah, I love it. I always I'll either gonna put that one or the one where like the train blows up and he's like almost in flames, and then I don't know. I was like, maybe I shouldn't put that one as my profile pic. And then like Tom's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" It's like, "What do you think? Like, friggin' the subway just blew up in my face, dude." All right, I'm gonna I'll plug my stuff and we'll cut it there.
Okay.
So guys, if you want to find more anime podcasters, the podcast is available for free download on iTunes. So go check out anime podcasters on iTunes. We're at 30 plus episodes now. You can also check out the SoundCloud channel for anime podcasters, soundcloud.com/JaianMusic. My Twitter is @JaianMusic, Facebook.com/JaianMusic. Oh my God, so many places. I also have a Discord server. Check that out if you would like. You can chat me up anytime in the Discord. I'm there pretty often. And I think that's going to be it. A big thank you to GoProKyo for coming on for this episode. I'm also going to be doing an entire episode about Zankyou no Terror with Hotshot because basically he lost his bet. And I was like, you're going to watch the show. Like, you have to watch this show. Like, literally, I could make a Hotshot watch any anime ever. And I was like, you're watching Zankyou no Terror. Yeah. Okay. No, that's basically it. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Anime Podcast. I don't know why I say it like that. And we will see you guys. At least I'll see you guys. Copro, are you going to be on the next one or not?
I have no idea.
This you just have to subscribe to find out. I'm using GoPro to get subscribers at this point. All right. Thank you guys so much. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.